Hello and welcome to Index Numbers. We're going to talk about index numbers, the CPI, and beyond. And you might be saying to yourself, cool, but what is an index number? And that would be a great question. An index number is a way that we compare the relative change or difference in a data set, such as the prices of products. The change can be measured over time or over different geographic regions. So over time, what we're talking about is that old relative you have who, sits in the corner and says, back in my day, it only cost a nickel for a soda. And you're like, okay, cool, it's $1.25 now. But the question is, would a nickel back then be the same as $1.25 now? That's what we're talking about with an index number, because the cost of living is different now than it was back then. Or over different geographic regions. So that's like you travel to Europe, you buy something that's 100 euro. How much is going to show up on your credit card statement? Because your credit card statement is in US dollars. And we also get US dollars better. So you want to make sure you know how much you're spending when you go to other countries. That would be another example of an index number. There are different types of index numbers. One type is a measure of average relative change in data. One data value is called the base. So this is important. We have to decide, okay, we're focusing in this video on over time. So what year do we want to be the base year? We decide that, and then that is assigned the value of 100, meaning it represents 100%. The other figures are adjusted in proportion to that base. So then we can compare everything based on whatever the chosen year is. And this is slightly off topic, but just so you know, the plural word for index is indices or indexes. You can decide which one you like better. I like indices. It kind of rolls off the tongue a little bit better, but it doesn't matter. They're both correct. The next question you might have, what is a CPI? A CPI, that is a consumer price index. It may also be called a producer price index or a consumer confidence index. A CPI is an example of an index number, allowing us to compare the cost of goods today to their cost in years past. This index is used by the US government to track changes in the prices of many items over time. And in this lesson, what we're going to focus on is one particular consumer good, the cost of gas per gallon. Okay, so here we have a table, each of the decade years from 1960 to 2010, and it shows the average gasoline price per gallon for the year. So that's what we see in these first two. We see the year and we see the price per gallon. We're going to use 1980 as the base year. And looking at this table, how do you know we're using 1980 as the base year? Because if we look in that row, it's 100%. And remember on that last slide, it said that you pick one to be the base, and then that's going to be 100%. So we use 1980 as 100%, or we say that it has a price index of 100. So you can either use the percent or the price index. They're basically the same thing. It's just the price index, you don't have the percent. And so what that allows us to do is now, once everything's in 1980 dollars, we can see how expensive things really are. For example, suppose the cost of gasoline today is $3.77 per gallon. Using the 1980 price as the reference value, find the price index for gasoline today. And now is a good time for me to go ahead and warn you, you might want to get a calculator out because we're probably not going to be able to do this math in our heads. So if you need to, pause the video, go find a calculator. Okay, so now you have your calculator using the 1980 as the reference value. So remember, reference value, that goes in the denominator. And then whatever we're asked to find would go in the numerator. And then what we need to do is we need to multiply by 100 or by 100% to convert it into that percent or price index. So the value we're talking about here is $3.77 per gallon. In 1980, it was $1.22 per gallon. And when I do this math and I multiply by 100, I get approximately 309.0%. So that means that the cost of gasoline is 309% of what it was in 1980. It's about 3 times more than what it was in 1980. Suppose it cost $15 to fill your tank in 1980. How much did it cost to buy the same amount of gas in 2010? Okay, so it cost $15 in 1980. Now we're interested in 2010. Well, what do we know about 2010? We know that its index number is 232.8, or that it was 232.8% more expensive. So we can use that. We can say, okay, it's going to be 232% of that 1980 value, and the 1980 value was $15. Now, we can't use a percent when we actually do calculations. We need to convert it to a decimal, either by dividing by moving the decimal 2 places to the left or putting it over 100. Either way, we're dividing by 100. If I move it 2 places to the left, I would end up with 2.328 times 15, which gives me approximately $34.92. So that's how much it would cost in 2010 based on $15 in 1980. Let's look at another example. Suppose it cost $21 to fill your tank in 2000. How much did it cost to buy the same amount of gas in 1960? So because this time it's giving us information from the year 2000, I'm going to use 2000 as my reference value this time. So we're going to set this up where this is my reference value, and then this is that comparison value, which would be our numerator. So what is our comparison value? It would be 31 cents. So I'm going to say 0.31 divided by our reference value, which is now 2000, $1.56. And we're going to multiply it by $21 because that's how much it took for us to fill up our gas tank in 2000. And when I do that, I get approximately $4.17. So what cost me $21 in 2000 would have cost me $4.17 in 1960. I chose to use the actual prices here that were given to me, but we could have done the same work with the price indices and ended up with the exact same answer. So if I took our comparison value of 25.4 and divided it by our reference value, which would have been 127.9, and multiplied that by the $21, we would still end up with approximately $4.17 for the cost of gas in 1960. Okay, in our last example, using the 2000 price as the reference value, so here they actually have us make that switch. Find the price index if today's gasoline is $3.77 per gallon. Compare your answer to the answer when 1980 was the reference value. So we might have to go back and look. When 1980 was the reference value, we had a price index of 309.0. What if we use 2000 as our reference value instead? So we're changing our base. If 2000 is our reference value, we would say 3.77 divided by 1.56 times 100, and we get approximately 241.7%. So you can see that the value of the dollar was higher in 2000 than it was in 1980, which makes sense because, right, it's called inflation, and inflation is usually what happens as we move forward in our years. These have been examples of using the CPI and price indices. Thank you so much for